It was really cool. I got there at like 5 in the morning or something after being up all night on planes and buses and whatnot. And I was just exhausted. But it was really cool to see once I finally got there. There were like palm trees all out front, and what's really cool, I think it's true for most foreign MTCs, but it's on the same grounds as the temple. So you can just like look out the window and you see the Dominican Republic temple right there. And for the MTC there, one of the difficult things for missionaries, a little bit for myself too, was just that all the classrooms and everything are on one floor. It's like a 4-story or 3-story building, but yeah, you're kind of stuck on that one floor. It's the same floor where your rooms and everything are, so that drove some missionaries kind of nuts. And then you go downstairs to the cafeteria, but yeah, your whole life is pretty much on one floor for those 6 weeks. It was really cool though, because while I was there, it wasn't just American missionaries. They had missionaries from all over go there. So we had like missionaries from Ghana and Haiti that were training in the Sesame. So it was a cool experience getting to know them, just get a taste for what, like what's out there. They took us over to a chapel, and I remember being shocked that there was no air conditioning, because we had been living inside the MTC with air conditioned, perfect temperature, and then we go to this chapel and it's really hot, and the office couple, because they were senior missionaries, came and they talked to us about different things, and I forgot all of it, so I was just relying on my trainer to remind me of everything. But yeah, the mission president got there. He just spoke Spanish, so I don't understand half of what he's saying. And I just remember being really excited to go out to the field after being in the MTC for so long. I remember going to my first apartment and just being like, what did I get myself into? It's like all tile floor, and then I discovered that that's pretty common in the Dominican Republic. There's like no carpet. If you see carpet there, you should take a picture, because you never see carpet there. But I just remember getting there, dropping my stuff off, and telling my companion, okay, I'm ready to get out there, I'm ready to go to work. And first we had lunch, which was good, and he made me like a custom, it's called La Rubia, which is rice, eggs, and avocado. The idea is that the rice is like a white face, the eggs are blonde hair, and avocado are green eyes. So it's supposed to be like an American girl, I don't know. Anyway, so he made that, and that was really good. But yeah, I just remember looking around, trying to figure everything out. Everything was so new and so different. So there are 3 missions in the Dominican Republic: the Santo Domingo West, East, and then in the north there's Santiago. So I was in the like southwestern part of the country. Pretty much, if you look at the Dominican Republic, it's on the same island as Haiti, but the Dominican Republic is much larger. So if you cut it in half, I was on the left half, and then lower left out to Haiti pretty much. You get up early in the morning, and usually the women are doing laundry. No one has like a actual washing machine as we know it. What they do have is it's like this 2-sectional washing thing. So on the left you have kind of your typical, there's a spinning disc at the bottom to agitate the water, and that's where you put all your clothes in. It's the biggest part of the machine. So you add some detergent there, and it just kind of agitates the water a little bit. There's not like a center column that spins it around really fast. And then on the right side, you have a centrifuge to dry out the clothes afterwards, kind of like I don't know if you've ever been to like a swimming pool where they have a little machine, you put your swimsuit in, close it, and it'll spin out all the water. But But anyways, that's what missionaries use too. So the women are washing clothes, the men will get up and they'll go to work. And then around like 1 o'clock, noonish, that's when lunchtime is, and that's when everything shuts down. So all the businesses, well, a lot of businesses will close, and people will just be eating lunch, and you don't want to go out and disturb people during lunch, because lunch is huge with them. Like, they'll eat a big lunch, and then maybe a little bit for dinner, but lunch is the main meal. One of the traditions there for lunch is oftentimes they'll have what's called la bandera, which it means the flag, and it's just because it's such a national thing. They have rice, beans, lettuce, and meat, and that's la bandera. So in some form of meat, some kind of beans, always rice, and then some lettuce is what they'll have for lunch a lot, which is it's really good, and surprisingly I didn't get tired of it. But yeah, things are shut down there until like 3 o'clock or so, and you'll be going around trying to teach people, but people will be taking naps and they don't like being disturbed. And then in the nighttime, I don't know if you call this a tradition, but they have what are called colmados, and they're just like hole in the wall convenience stores, like mini marts, but during the nighttime they turn into outdoor bars, and they'll just be blasting music, and you're kind of unfortunate if you get a missionary apartment near one of those colmados, although it's kind of hard to escape because they're everywhere. But yeah, during the night, and then the men will just drink and let's get drunk and sing and dance and listen to the music. Sometimes it goes well into the night. It was one of the islands that Columbus landed on when he came over. Some people said it was the first, but I don't think that's correct. Other people said it was his favorite island. There's the colonial zone, which is shared. Well, actually, it's on the east side of the mission, and I had the opportunity to go there once. And it's cool because that's where the governor's house was, which was Christopher Columbus's son. So it was pretty much, it looked like this fort. They had like all the walls there. It's very close to the coast. So it was kind of like a defensive fort, and also where the governor of the Dominican Republic lived and everything. So that was cool to see. Also, the original people there were called the Taínos. But when the Spaniards came, this is what I heard from the Dominican people. When the Spaniards came, the Taínos didn't want to be ruled by Spain, so they all committed suicide. So actually the majority of Dominicans are Spaniards. Some say that they're like mixed with Taíno blood, and you can kind of tell in the eyes, they look a little more golden brown or something. But yeah, so that's kind of interesting history. I haven't gone and researched it, that's just what I was told. But that's pretty much all I know about the Dominican history. The church has been in the Dominican Republic. When I was there, it had been there for 32 years, so still relatively new. Originally, missionaries from the Florida mission came over. There were like 10 missionaries that were sent over here from the Florida mission just to see if it, the Dominican Republic, just to see if it was like viable. And they were pretty well received. So just in 32 years time, the church has grown there. There are 3 missions, like I was saying earlier, and there's a temple. The temple's been there for like 7 years. I guess now it's been there for like 9 years. But yeah, it's really flourished there. I had the opportunity to be in one of the wards that had like the original converts to the Dominican Republic there, and yeah, they're great, but the church still is very young. Pretty much everyone is first generation, maybe second generation, but they're really young. So that was one of, I guess, the struggles. was also building up the church. While you're looking for converts, people to teach, you're also working on strengthening the wards and trying to help everyone like fulfill their callings, just because the church is so young there. So the Dominican people, they're very believing. They are, how do I, like they believe in Christ. They're God-fearing people. Just for the very fact that they believe in God and in Jesus Christ, they'll let missionaries in like 90% of the time. So it's not so much a problem with getting in and being able to teach people, because they're very receptive. The only problem is that they just like to hear the word, which is really good, but they're not so much interested in the message of like the restoration of the gospel and everything. They love Christ so much, they just want to hear about him, and so that's kind of one of the challenges in teaching people. The Dominican Republic is very warm and very humid, so that was a little bit of an adjustment to get used to. It's just year-round, you're hot, you're sweaty, but there are seasons where there's a lot of rain. It's usually around July that it could rain for like a week or two. And while I was there, I don't know if you heard about Hurricane Thomas, but that passed over while I was there, so it got a little crazy there. One of the cool things, though, is that this is what I heard, I haven't looked it up, but in the temple dedication by President Hinckley, he said that while he was dedicating the temple, that no natural disaster would ever like befall it or anything. So since then, there haven't been any natural disasters that have hit the Dominican Republic. It's all just kind of veered towards Haiti, which is kind of sad, and that's when the earthquake happened. I was there. But yeah, so Hurricane Thomas, you look at the images, it's coming right over the DR and then just veers off to the left and totally misses us. But we got a lot of rain. I remember one of those rainy seasons, I was with my companion, and we were just determined to just work through the rain. So you wrap up all your books and your pamphlets, stick them in your bag and just go out, and you're sloshing around and your shoes are full of water. It's just downpouring, but the temperature still isn't too bad despite the rain. So you just go out and you work. It doesn't really ever get cold in the Dominican Republic. Sometimes in the mornings it'll be chilly, but what's really funny is that the Dominicans are not used to cold weather at all. So you'll see people like walking around and they have like sweatshirts on and everything, and you're just sweating and like, man, and they're talking about how cold it is. It's like, no, this is wonderful. This is wonderful. Yeah, that's pretty much the weather in the DR all the time. So there are a few modes of transportation. Right now in the Dominican Republic, they're working on expanding this network of underground trains. And that'll take you, if you're in like the capital, it'll take you to like quite a few places in Santo Domingo. If not that though, then you have the option to take a taxi, and taking a taxi is always fun, because you can either do the traditional, hey, like take me here, take me there, and then they'll charge you based on how far, but they also have these taxistas which run just the same route back and forth, and you'll be standing on the side and you'll wave them down, or they'll drive by and be like, hey, climb in. You're like, no, I don't want a ride. Anyway, they try to pack as many people in there as they can, so you have 2 people in the front seat, and usually for some reason there's not a middle seat in the front seat. It's usually like a manual or something. So you have the front seat, you have 2 people there, and then in the back seat you have 4 people. So there's always one person that sits forward, so you have 2 people in the main seat, and in the middle seat one's like forward and one's kind of behind them, so you're just crammed in there until you get out. And then they also have the guaguas, like I was talking about with the buses, and they jam pack those. I remember one time we were in this, it was actually a pretty big, actually no, it was in UMSA. So in UMSA, I don't know if it's like run by the government or what, but they're like big buses. From the outside, they kind of look like a Greyhound or something, but inside there's just like some benches and some poles for people to stand in. I got in once, and we got to where we were going, and it was just so packed, there was no room, so we just climbed out the windows to get out of the bus. And then they'll have similar, like, smaller buses that'll go kind of across the country if you need to get far distances. Most of the buildings are just cement blocks, and they're very, like, the buildings are built very like cubicle. Yeah, everything is just those cinder blocks. If you're like well off, then your roof is also like covered and paved and everything, but there are a lot of houses that are just tin roof houses. So like when it rains, things will be like clinging and stuff, and it's kind of hard to talk. Yeah, that's pretty much, and like I was saying earlier, the floors are completely tile. One of the big celebrations every year is La Semana Santa, which is the Holy Week, and it's just I believe it's the week like right before Easter. But anyway, there are huge celebrations go on all week. There are parties in the streets, and one of the big things is they set up swimming pools just in the middle of the street, which is a problem sometimes for traffic. But yeah, people go crazy, they dress up. Sometimes you kind of have to avoid those streets during Semana Santa just because there are so many people and there are swimming pools, so you just kind of steer clear during that week. But it's a really big thing there. They have sweet beans, habichuelas dulces, during that week, which was really good. I was kind of weirded out by the concept of having sweetened pinto beans at first, but it was really good. They like blend down the pinto beans and they add a bunch of sugar and some sweetened condensed milk and everything, and that's one of the big traditions during La Semana Santa. One thing I didn't know beforehand was that you should not get an expensive suit, because you will not wear your suit during your mission. You wear it in the MTC, you wear it in the CCMA, and they'll sometimes have you wear it if there's an apostle who comes, and they'll have everyone wear their suits to the conference. But other than that, you never wear your suit, so there's no point in spending a lot of money on it. So if you go out to eat in the Dominican Republic, like some fast food, you'll usually go to a pico pollo, which are these kind of like Kentucky Fried Chicken places. They're almost always run by Chinese people. And yeah, you just get fried chicken and plátanos fritos, which are just fried plantains. And those are really good. I'd never had a plantain before. So yeah, there's fried. It's kind of like the equivalent of our French fries, although they have those too, but most people eat fried plantains. Empanadas. I love empanadas. And they're all kinds, like pizza, eggs, beef, and everything. And they'll just have empanada stands. You kind of have to be careful where you go to, just because some people will reuse oil for a long time. So you kind of want to avoid those places. But yeah, the empanadas are amazing. So if you're ever in Altagracia, there's an empanada place right below the missionary's apartment. Excellent. Another traditional food is called Sancocho, and it's pretty much like stew, but they throw everything in. So that kind of weirded me out the first time. First time I had it was in the CCMA, And yeah, it's this stew. They have, I don't know, like potatoes and different things, but then they throw like chicken in there, and it's like the bones and everything. You get like the chicken spine and back in there, and the chicken feet are in this stew. It's just everything. It's pretty good. I kind of steered clear of the meat that was in it though, just because there's so many bones and stuff. Juices are huge there. People pride themselves in their juice making. There's just so many natural fruits there. Like one of my favorite kinds of juices was chinola, which is passion fruit. And there's tamarindo and zapote, just all kinds of juices and shakes and stuff. They're also very, very friendly. Like you can be walking down the street and you say, "Hey, hermano," like to anyone. Well, except for girls, you know. You say like, "Hey, brother or sister," to anyone, and they're like, "Hey, hi, saludo." Like they're very friendly. And yeah, you don't really feel... At first I felt really uncomfortable going up to people and saying hi to them, but then I realized how friendly they are, and yeah, it got a lot easier. The Dominican people are very hospitable. Like you can go in, you don't even know them, you teach them, or you just ask them to pass by some other time, and they'll give you food, they'll give you different kinds of juices. The juices in the Dominican Republic are amazing, just because they have the fruit right there, but it tastes great anyway. So they're very hospitable. Even though they themselves don't have a whole lot, they make sure that you're taken care of. And they actually get offended sometimes if you refuse food, which I learned. Yeah. So, and then other times though, they'll just pile on the food. I remember in my first area, there was a sister who used to feed the missionaries a lot. And she served the missionaries up their plates. So it's not like you can like scoop up and get your own food. So I had this plate like this big, just loaded with rice. And then there's, like meat and maybe some avocados aside from that. And I was just dying. And my companion, my trainer, is looking over at me and is like, "You've got to finish it, man. You don't want to offend her. You got to finish it." I'm just like, I want to cry. I'm so full. I'm just pounding down this rice. I've never eaten so much rice in my life. And my dad is Chinese, so we eat a lot of rice in our home, but never just this mountain of rice. But yeah, that just goes to show how hospitable Dominicans are. Some basic hygienic things. There's pretty much anything that you could want, you can find there, just maybe not the kind you want. So, you can find toothpaste and deodorant and everything. One of the most coveted items in the mission was Old Spice deodorant, because there are very few places that sell it. So if you're a fan of Old Spice, I would recommend you bring several sticks of Old Spice deodorant. Politics in the Dominican Republic, which are huge. Come political season, or actually just all year round, there are posters and banners of candidates and everything, and everyone gets really into it. But come election day, it can get a little dangerous if the person in your sector, your barrio, the person they wanted to win didn't win, then I can get a little dangerous. I remember one time, it was in my first year of my mission, it was that time of year, and the mission president had us all stay home for after 6 o'clock, just stop proselyting and go home. And we heard some gunshots and stuff. I don't know what happened, because we were safe and sound inside, but yeah, that kind of stuff happens. They have what are called verjas, which are just iron bars on all the windows, on the doors and everything, and yeah, just everywhere on the missionaries' apartments. Generally, missionaries aren't allowed to live in an apartment unless it does have bars on all the windows. So that was kind of different seeing, coming from small town, Marshalltown, Iowa, where everyone trusts everyone, to this place where everything is, iron barred. So anyway, Also, another big thing there is ski mice. And it's pretty much an otter pop. So these guys walking around dressed up with dragging around a big cylindrical cooler of otter pops, pretty much. And you always love when you see those people because you're always hot and sweaty, so you buy one for 5 pesos, and yeah, it's great. I mean, basic monetary unit in the Dominican Republic is the peso. The peso itself is just like, if you have 1 peso, it's pretty much worthless. I remember one time, we had all saved up our pesos because you don't want to be carrying around, they're like the largest coin there. Like the 5 peso coin, 10 peso coin. I guess the 25 peso coin is biggest, but the 1 peso coin is like that big and it weighs a lot, so you don't want to be carrying that around to spend it. So I remember in one of the apartments I was in, we pooled all of our pesos together and we bought pizza from Domino's or something, and we just gave this guy just like this bag full of pesos, and it felt kind of bad. But yeah, so the peso themselves aren't worth a whole lot. As far as like how much things cost in the DR, it's similar to about the price in the United States. I mean, depending on what you're getting. If you get some weird item, maybe like if you get like a camera or something, then yeah, it's going to be more expensive in the Dominican Republic. But food, it's really not that much more than in the United States. I don't know what the conversion rate is right now between pesos and a dollar, but when I was there, I always calculated they're like 30 pesos in a dollar. So just some examples. You can buy a bottle of water for 15 pesos. You can buy soda also for 15 pesos, which is kind of weird. Sometimes soda is cheaper than water. I was in the Santo Domingo West mission, but that includes, so the Santo Domingo, the capital, and then you have the country. And, just everything outside of the capital pretty much is just country. So you have places like San Juan, Asua, Barahona, and they have like their own little towns and cities, like Neiva and Duvergé, where I was, and that's like out in the middle of nowhere, literally. Like nearest area to us was like 2 hours away. But so each area in the mission is different, and that's one of the cool things about going to that mission, is that you see so many different things. If you're in the capital, you'll see a lot of tall apartment buildings with like little intercoms. You press the buttons so you can talk to people inside, maybe, if they answer it. As you start to move further away from that area, though, then you have these smaller houses, maybe like 2 stories, and then other areas where it's just like little, like some people would live in homes that would be, maybe 30 feet by 30 feet and have their entire family in there. You have your bedroom, and then you have a curtain, and then your kitchen area, and that's pretty much it. As you go out into the country, then yeah, just each area in the country is even different. Some places are like really dry and look like the desert, and then other places it looks kind of like the jungle. There's just lots of palm trees everywhere. I imagined that it would be like this jungle or something that I'd be going to, but it wasn't. There actually weren't a whole lot of animals that I saw. I did see some parrots, just like some wild parrots, and that was cool. But other than that, that's like all the wildlife I saw there. There, as far as like plants and stuff, you see a ton of palm trees. You see some coconut trees, and one apartment where I lived, we had an avocado, not an avocado, we had a mango tree in our backyard. So mangoes would just fall every day and you could eat them. So that was cool. Some interesting things about the Dominican Republic, there's not always electricity everywhere. So I tried asking people to find out why this is. I've heard different things. someone told me that it's like the government has some deal with the electric company, because the electric company has a monopoly over the Dominican Republic, so that they're only allowed to give certain sectors electricity during different hours of the day. So I've been in areas where you have electricity 6 hours during the day, and you kind of have to take advantage of that time to do laundry and stuff. So that's kind of interesting. More than one occasion done scripture study by candlelight, and yeah, that kind of threw me off. I wasn't expecting no electricity. Another thing is with the water there. They don't have like a filtration system. I mean, they do some basic filtration, but it's not drinkable. You'll get parasites and amoebas, and that happened to some missionaries who like drank the water. So you kind of have to watch out for that. Also, because there's not always electricity, you have what are called tinacos, which are big water tanks that sit on the roof. And when there is electricity, there's a bomba, a pump, that shoots water up there, fills it up, so that when there's no electricity, you can still have some running water. Although when that runs out, then you're in trouble. And I've been in like one area, we didn't have water for like 2 weeks. So what we did was, there was like one place in the town that had some water. So we filled up, it's like buckets and jugs of water to take back to our apartment. And then you just have this little bowl that you shower with. Just use the water sparingly. So what you do for water, since you can't drink it straight out of the tap, is they have little trucks that drive around, and they sell people filtered water, which comes in containers just like, a water cooler with a big blue jug that you flip over. So you just buy that filtered water. I've bathed with it sometimes just because there's no other water, so it's kind of an expensive bath. But also the mission will issue missionaries, I don't know if you've seen them, they're like bottles like with a filter in them. I don't know if you have them in your mission. So supposedly they're good for like 6 months. And so that's really good to have. So you could use water straight from the tap with those. They still recommend you use filtered water even with those, but yeah, that's nice to have. If you go out to the Campo, the country, then there's called what is it called? Like Kanye? Anyway, it's sugar cane. And there's fields and fields of sugar cane. So that's kind of cool to see. There's these long stalks. And I mean, they're used to make sugar, but also people will cut them down and they'll walk around in the streets and they'll be selling sugar cane. So there's this guy with these long stalks and a machete and just chopping away and cuts them into little bars, and then you just bite them off, and it's like you feel like you're eating a tree, but you just like suck the sugar out and then spit out the fibers and stuff. So that's kind of cool. Some basic things that you would find at like Walmart, if you need like a laundry bag or different non-food items. There are some like supermarkets like that. La Sirena is one of them, but they're not in all areas. So I don't know. If you don't bring things like that and you need them, they're sometimes hard to get a hold of, unless you get special permission to run to one of those supermarkets. I don't know. There's not really pretty much anything that you could want, you can find there. One of the weird things is pomegranates. There'd be just some random trees, pomegranate trees, and people just let them rot and stuff. Here, pomegranates are like expensive and everyone wants them, but they're people just don't like pomegranate. There would be huelgas, which is just strikes, and that's it got kind of be a problem where that happened. Missionaries weren't allowed to leave sometimes, and like you were saying with burning tires, they would, in protest, like burn tires in the middle of the road. I was never in one of those areas, so I don't know exactly what it was like. I know, yeah, but yeah, that kind of stuff did happen on occasion. Huelgas were particularly bad because it usually involved like the bus transportation system, where in the Dominican Republic no one really has a car. I mean, some people do, but very few people. So if you want to get anywhere, you go on guaguas, which I guess is a name that comes from Africa. I don't know. But you get in these like really old vans, pretty much. I mean, some look more like buses, but mostly they look like vans. And sometimes they're missing their side door or whatever. You just climb in and go wherever you need to. But sometimes with the gas prices, especially, that's why the huelgas happened. If the gas prices got too high, then the bus drivers would go on strike, and sometimes it would get violent. Like you were saying, I mean, in the Dominican Republic, it is very hot. So, like, a lot of women don't wear, a lot of clothes. And the men too, it's funny, they'll be sitting on the side of the street and they'll have their shirt up here with their beer belly hanging out, just taking in the breeze. But anyway, to a missionary, it can be really distracting with these girls walking around and they're not well dressed. I think the best advice is just follow the mission manual. It's there for a reason. It's there to protect you. I know some missionaries feel like embondaged by the mission manual, but it's really there to help you. Like it says, just don't be anywhere alone with a woman. Make sure your companion's always there. Also, be careful and watchful of him to keep him safe too. Another thing, when I was in the CCM, or maybe it was an MTC, I can't remember which, but one of our teachers just told us, it was like, when you go there, just like lock down your heart. And it doesn't mean, don't love people, because you're supposed to love everyone. But just as far as like the aspect goes where, like before your mission, you're dating people and like looking for that eternal companion, just kind of like forget about that stuff while you're on your mission. Put that on hold. And just love the Lord and love the people as your brothers and sisters. Some missionaries did get into some problems in that they, fell for a girl in the Dominican Republic and they made some mistakes. But you just have to be careful and just don't put yourself in situations where anything could happen. And also remember that some girls may express interest in you. Some girls will be very flirtatious, but it's not you necessarily that they're attracted to. It's just the fact that you're American. There's this one song that plays a lot in the Dominican Republic, with this guy singing about "Quiero una americana para mangar mi visa." It's like he wants an American just to get a visa, like he wants an American girlfriend just to get a visa, or wife, I guess, to get a visa to go to America. Anyway, I don't know if that's always the case, but yeah, you just have to be careful. At that point, I was in the office, and I just remember the mission president kind of told all missionaries to just stay in their apartments. So yeah, we just saw a lot of rain. Oh, there was a lot of flooding. So the sewer system is not that great in the DR. So I remember going out. We had to make a couple of runs with the senior couple, And I just remember the water being up, like, it's at like door level as you're driving around. Fortunately, we had trucks, so but you could see steam like come up as the water would hit the engine and stuff. It was just a lot of water. So for the most part, we just stayed in the apartment. Yeah, that's pretty much all I remember about Hurricane Thomas. So one time, my companion and I were out in our area. It was in the evening, maybe like 7, and we were approached by this guy in an army uniform, and he was like, "Hey, you guys are missionaries, right?" It's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I served a mission too." He's like, "Yeah, I served a mission. It was like up in Santiago or something." We're like, "Oh, cool!" And it's cool meeting people like that aren't members like in your immediate area. He was just visiting or something. Well, we found out what he was doing later. Anyway, he was like, "Yeah, so anyway, I'm looking for someone here. Her name it was like Maria or something." And I was like, "Yeah, I know where she lives." In my mind, I was thinking this, but at the same time, I got this bad feeling, like this bad vibe from this guy. I mean, even though, he'd said he was a returned missionary and everything, it's like, something's not right. And so he pulls out his phone and he has a picture of her on his phone. And he's like, "Yeah, this is her. Like, do you know where she lives?" And I'm just like, "Yep, I know where she lives," in my mind, but I just didn't feel right. So we're like, "Yeah." And I turned to my companion, and he was kind of getting the same feeling. So we're like, "Yeah, she lives over there in that direction somewhere," and just totally wrong direction. And he's like, "Okay, well, thank you." And he goes on. And I turned to my companion and was like, "That guy gave me the creeps. Something is wrong here." And he's like, "Yeah, we should let her know this guy's looking for him." So we tried calling her, but she didn't answer. So we decided to go to where she lived. And as we were walking, there was a colmado at the basement of where she lives, and she lived on like the 4th story or something. And he was in the colmado down there. And so we're like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" And we just kept walking past, and we hid in a parking lot just to see what would happen. And we waited for him to walk past us. And after he was gone, we went up to her apartment, and we found out why she didn't answer. Is because she was on the phone talking to someone. And we told her what had happened, like we had met this guy, and she's like, "Oh no, he found me." And we're just like, "Oh man, what's going on here?" And she said, just like it was her ex-husband. I think he was like abusive or something, and she'd been hiding from him, but he had found her. And so we're freaking out, and we're like, "Well, I guess we know why we didn't, feel inspired to tell him where she lived." But he texted her just a few minutes later after we were there, and he was like, "Those silly missionaries." Like, we're just like, "Oh boy." So we hung out there just to make sure she'd be all right until she had another ex-husband he was a good guy. So he showed up to wait with her. Anyway, we went back home, and we were like, "Man, that was a crazy experience." But it was just one of those moments in my mission where I felt, like we were inspired, and the Lord does look out for his missionaries. And yeah, so that was a really cool experience. And there were other experiences like that during my mission that I just felt like something wasn't right, so we didn't do something. And sometimes I never found out the reason why. But, an experience like that with this guy dressed up in an army uniform kind of just confirmed to me that, the Lord does watch over his missionaries. There was an investigator that my companion and I had in one of our areas, and she was a member of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And out of all the people that I met during my mission, I felt like the Seventh-day Adventist members were the most knowledgeable and informed about their religion and their beliefs. So it was always kind of difficult teaching them because they were very sure in their beliefs. So this lady, we were just knocking on doors, and we set an appointment with her to come back later. And from the get-go, you can tell that she's very intelligent. She's not really willing to be convinced right away. But we felt inspired to leave her with the pamphlet about the plan of salvation. And we left her with that, and we came back later. She had read the whole thing, and she had taken notes and written things down, and she was very interested. So we kept teaching her, and she was just a very smart woman, but also very set in her beliefs in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And she was like the equivalent of a primary president there, been a member of the church for many years. She said she'd been looking around for a while before she finally decided on the Adventist Church. Well, one time I think it was actually after we gave her that, we'd come back from and talked about the plan of salvation. We'd been asking her to pray to know if this is the true church and everything. And she's like, okay, I'll do it. And I remember in one visit, we were talking about it, and we're like, so did you pray to know if the church is true and if you should join it? And she started crying, and she's like, this afternoon, I knelt down upstairs and I prayed, and I was just like, Heavenly Father, tell me if this is true, what I need to do. And she said she was up there for a long time, but she received an answer that our message was true. And she was just crying because she had all these friends in the Adventist Church, and just her calling there and everything, but she knew that Heavenly Father had inspired her, had given an answer to her prayers, and she was just such a faithful person. She was willing to follow that prompting, even though it would mean losing a lot of her friends. So that was just a very powerful experience for me, and it confirmed my testimony that this is true. And there were several experiences like that during my mission. What's cool, she ended up getting baptized along with her son, and then after I left the area, her husband, who couldn't read, but was also a very faithful person, he ended up getting baptized, so the whole family would go to church, and they were just amazing. Okay, so in the DR you meet a lot of people, obviously. I mean, it's your mission, and a lot of the times you'll meet them in the street, and you'll try to set an appointment with them and pass by, but it just doesn't work out, either because they hide from you or they're just not there. So there was this one evening, my companion and I were tracting, and we were in a really difficult area. I mean, I know there are a lot of difficult areas, or each area has potential, but this was a hard area. Everyone was in these 100-foot tall apartment buildings. There were guards there, so you can't go in and knock on doors. So it's just hard to find people even to talk to. So you wind up just talking to people on the street, which doesn't always work out. But one time we were in this area, and we saw a group of Haitian men, and they were talking and stuff, and we approached them, and we were like, hey, how's it going? It's like, we're missionaries from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We have this message. We'd love to share it with you guys. And they're all like, oh, yeah, sure. And there was one of them who was like, yeah, I live over there. He gave us the address and everything. It was like, okay, we'll pass by. And we didn't have a whole lot of hopes, just because it happens a lot. Half the time you can't even find where they said. I don't know if it's because they don't actually live there or what. But we passed by in a couple days for our appointment, and he was an escogido, which just means prepared by the Lord investigator. And it was really cool experience teaching him. He didn't have a whole lot as far as like worldly things, but he was very intelligent. He loved our message. He loved learning about Christ and the gospel, and he would read what we gave him, and he came to church, and eventually I was able to baptize him. It was funny, accidentally, as I baptized him, I hit his head on the wall in the baptismal font. Always tell your investigators to bend their knees. I forgot. Anyway, he is just an amazing man, and it was a really cool experience, and it kind of humbled me a little bit into recognizing that the Lord prepares people everywhere, and not to jump to conclusions like, oh, they won't be interested, but just really talk to everyone. And yeah, the large majority of the people that you talk to aren't going to be interested. They're not going to progress. But every once in a while, you will find someone, like I found, who was prepared by the Lord, and he just needed the missionaries to talk to him. One time, it was one of those days that it was really rainy, and it had been rainy for a long time, and my companion and I, we were going to go home for the night, so we went to get our truck, because during the day you just walk around. You can only the office elders and the assistants, they have trucks because they need to run around and do errands and stuff, but everyone else is just walking around. So I was in the office. We dropped off our truck at the chapel, locked it up and everything, and we came home for the night. We got in the truck, and it's just, everything is so wet, and the water is just totally covering the street. So we start to go our normal way back to our apartment, but I look over to my companion and I'm just like, we're not driving through this. Like, the car's gonna die. And he's like, oh, no, it's a diesel truck. It's fine. So I'm like, you know what? No, I don't feel good about this. We're not gonna do this. And he's just like trying to keep encouraging me to drive through this, 5 feet of water. I'm like, no, this is not happening. I don't care what you say about it being diesel. It's not a submarine. But so anyway, I drove around it all. We got a call from the assistants a little bit later, and they're like, hey, we need you to pick us up. Like, oh, really? So we didn't know exactly what was going on. We just knew that their truck had died. So we drove up to meet them, and when we got there, their truck had already been pushed clear, but you could see where it had stopped, and it was this massive, it looked like a small pond in the road, because there was just, at one point there was this dip, and I guess whoever was driving decided to go for it. But I talked to one of the missionaries after that, and he said they drove into it, and then all of a sudden, just kind of like you see in the movies, there's this water, and it started coming up through the floorboards, and so the truck was dead. And I guess during flooding like that, there are little Dominican boys who just wait by water, ponds and stuff that gather, and they push cars out as they see them go in. So some Dominican boys had come up and pushed them out of the water, and yeah, so the truck was just dead. So they had to borrow the mission president's truck for 2 months while it got repaired. But that was awesome. And then my companion turned to me and was like, you were right. And so I felt, pretty good. I felt inspired to keep their truck safe and keep us safe. Depending on the area you're in, you want to be careful about where you go late at night, because the Dominican Republic is a safe place, especially for missionaries, because even the tigres, which is what the the bad boys in the street are called, even they will respect missionaries. But sometimes missionaries have gotten robbed, and it's usually late at night. So you just want to be careful where you go. You want to be in well-lit areas, just like the missionary manual tells you to. So that's just a little safety tip. I'm very, very grateful that I had an opportunity to serve a mission. It's changed my life forever, and it's changed my life for the good. I think one of the things I've most learned from my mission is that you get out of it what you put into it. Like, you go there to serve the Lord, to bless your brothers and sisters, to help them come to know the gospel, but you also grow personally, and the Lord prepares you for the rest of your life. If you go there and you're looking to serve the Lord and grow and become a better instrument in His hands, and that's exactly what's going to happen. Before my mission, I was a very timid person, very shy, and very uncomfortable with myself, and also just expressing any thoughts or feelings about the gospel. But my mission for me changed me so much. It blessed me with much more confidence, and also just a greater knowledge and assurance that this message is true. As I saw it change the lives of those around me, the people that I was teaching, as I saw the light in their eyes, as they came to know that our message was true, blessed and strengthened me so much. And every single person that I met and every single person I had the opportunity to teach changed me and helped me grow and helped me develop a greater love for the Lord, for His gospel, and what He has done for us. Those 2 years of my life, I wouldn't trade for anything in the world. Whatever opportunities that I had before my mission that I had to leave behind or give up, I wouldn't go back. I wouldn't change my mind at all. I have zero regrets about serving my mission. Sometimes during my mission, it was the hardest time in my entire life. I had problems with getting along with companions. I had problems adjusting to the culture, being away from family, from friends. But every single trial I went through and every single experience, the Lord was with me every step of the way. And I'm a much stronger person now because of it.
I went to the MTC in the Dominican Republic. So that was actually really cool because I was already in the country, experiencing the heat already. And I liked it. It was hard because I was in a trio. My district was actually really small. There was 3 sisters and 1 elder. That was our district. But I really enjoyed it because, you're so excited to go out and then I don't know. It's hard, but I enjoyed being there. I enjoyed the teachers because they were all Dominican and they spoke to us in Spanish, and so we had to learn. It was hard, but I liked it. It's right on, right on temple grounds, so it was really nice. Once the age changed, they needed to send a lot of people, and so I think from now on they do go to the Dominican Republic if there's space, but they don't necessarily have to, but I think it's cool. I'm from Idaho. I flew from Boise to Denver by myself, and then Denver to Florida by myself, no missionaries. And then I arrived in Florida, and we had a 4-hour layover. And I remember looking for missionaries my whole time. And there was a girl on the payphone. I was like, she looks like a missionary. So I met her, and there was other people from my district. And so we all sat next to each other on the plane, and then we got there, and it was 11 at night, dark, and when we were told that someone would be there to pick us up, and no one was there, we're what the heck? And then we see this guy not dressed up or anything. He just has a sign Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we're like, is that the guy? We're I don't know. And then we get in this van, and all these people are trying to carry our luggage, and we heard about you could tip, people try to help with your carrying your luggage. And one of the elders was he had $1 and then $20 and gave the $20 to one of the guys, and we're like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money. And then he ran off with the money, and we're like, okay, where are we? The guy that picked us up didn't really speak English, and it was fun. So all right, so we headed to the MTC. since it was really late, they had all this food for us, and I wasn't hungry. I was ready for bed, and but then we couldn't sleep. We were up till like 4 in the morning. I had to get up at 6, and it was a long day the next day. They take your picture too, so you're like, it was great. In the DR, there is 3 missions. There's Santo Domingo West, which is where I served, Santo Domingo East, and Santiago. The temple was in my mission. I did serve the capital a few times. That's where the temple is, but it was never actually in my area. But my mission goes like all the way to the border of Haiti. The sisters don't go out that far. The farthest we go is an area called San Juan, and I actually served there. But there's a lot of Haitians in the Dominican Republic because of close to Haiti. Well, I do know that the church has only been there since like 1970. And so, I mean, it's fairly new. And so, if you meet like members that have been members for a while, they're either like first or second generation. Like it's not that far back. And so it's actually really cool that the church is kind of a new thing there. Like it's established, but it's still like new, which I thought was really cool. So the temple has been there since 2000, and it's the only temple actually in the Caribbean until they build the one in Haiti that they just announced. So a lot of people from the Caribbean just go to the DR. So it's cool that was in my mission. There wasn't like a pattern of like, oh, you always were with a Latin or with American. I had about half and half. I had 7 companions. I think 4 of them were American and 3 were Latins. I had a Dominican companion. She was the one I had for the longest time. I was with her for 3 transfers. So that was about like 5 months. And then I had a companion from El Salvador. And then a companion from Peru. So, yeah, some people have Latins like the whole time, but my MTC companion didn't have a Latin. So it just kind of depends. I'm glad I did. It made my Spanish go a lot faster. So, because I had to speak Spanish, and especially with Dominicans, like it's a different Spanish. So I learned Dominican Spanish when I was with my Dominican companion. My first area was Ocoa. I was there for 6 months. So that's a longer time. Like I said, it's like the coldest area. So actually, I was expecting to be hot in the Dominican Republic like the whole time. And I got there around the end of February, and I was freezing at night, which I was not expecting. I remember grabbing all my clothes, like the cardigans I didn't need, and like putting them on top of me to sleep at night. Like it was just so cold. So I ended up having to buy a blanket, which I thought was crazy. Like I didn't need a blanket. But it was really interesting because since it was in the mountains, one of our areas, we had to cross a river and climb up the mountain, which is about an hour walk up, an hour walk down. And I was like, oh, this is so fun. And then when it rains, it floods, and like, oh, it's crazy. But I loved Ocoa. Since most people in the South are poor, that story that I shared about bien tiempo, like that was when I was in training. So it is more poorer areas, but it's very beautiful, very green since it's mountainy, a lot of rain, and a lot of people actually go there. We'd always run into Canadians, which I was like, why is there white people here? Like, what? Because people always stare at us, and I'd stare at the white Canadians that came in. I'm like, who are they? I'm like, is that how they feel? Like, is that what we look like? But so that was my first area, and I really liked it. Then I went to that area to the capital, which is a different change for me. It was hot, and I got my first Latin companion. I got a Dominican, so that was a big change. I went from like cold, beautiful, large area. It was a lot of walking to like the capital, a small area, hot. I was speaking Spanish all the time, and it was challenging, and the work was a little bit hard. It was a branch, and there's a lot of things that are happening. But I was only there in that one area for a transfer, because then we whitewashed, and we switched with the elders in our same district, I think it was, or zone. So then I stayed in the capital, but it was a different area. I went from a branch to a ward, which was weird. because in the Akoa it was a branch as well. And so all of a sudden I was in a ward, and there's a bishop, and there was callings, and we weren't teaching all the time. And I was like, whoa. Work was different because you're in the city, and it's hotter in the capital, I feel like, because there's not as much airflow because of all the buildings and stuff. And then I went from there back to the south to San Juan, and that's another beautiful place. I was blessed. I went to Ocoa, and then I went to San Juan, which is another beautiful area. And it wasn't super mountainy, but it was out there in the countryside, and just really wonderful people. I have a wonderful family there that I met, that I consider them my family, and I ended up training there, and so it was a great place for me. And then I left that area and went back to the capital, to Quisqueya, it was around May, June, July area time that I was there, and so it was really hot again in the capital. But I was in a ward again, and it's cool to have like the different. I was glad I served in the South and Capital to see the different type of work between a branch and a ward, between walking a lot and not walking as much, because my mission was just walking. We didn't have bikes. Sometimes we would take little taxis to areas, but not usually. It was mainly for like conferences and stuff. We would take those. So I had the different heat and cold, and it was fun. The houses are a lot different than they are here. Usually it's just like concrete, like blocks, and depending on how wealthy you are, you have either tin roofs or you actually have like a wooden roof, because the tin is really loud when it rains, and it rains quite a bit. It's interesting to me, like in the capital especially, is where I saw this the most, because you could have a really nice house, like nice areas in the capital are way better than the houses I've seen here. I'm like, whoa. But then you can have just a couple houses down this alleyway with this, like, call them callejones, which is like houses built on houses like crazy, just on top of each other in small areas. And that's why I said, like, neighbors are basically family, because you basically live right there. And so those are the more poorer areas. So I thought it was interesting, like the change between that. Mainly missionaries work more in the callejones and stuff like that, because it's harder to get into a nice house, or sometimes in some places in the capital there's like apartment buildings you have to do intercom, which I didn't like that. Because like in the other areas, like in the south, you just say like saludos, like outside the door, and they're like, oh, come in, and they don't even know you. So it's way more welcoming in the south than it is in the capital. I feel like the less nice their house was, the more hospitable and welcoming they were. But yeah, so it's a little different. Most houses are like very close to each other, either on top, a little bit below. The building structure is a little different. There is a lot of rain. And Dominicans too, they don't like rain. It's so funny. They think they're gonna get sick. I mean, you can get sick. I won't, discredit that, but they also, like, they don't want to get their hair wet because they wash it once a week, and so they need to keep it nice and straight because it's crazy curly. And so what they do, if it rains, they put bags on their heads, and if they have to go outside. If not, they won't go outside if it's raining. And I mean, as a missionary, we tracked in the rain. We have umbrellas, or hopefully do. And they just yell out, like, no se mojen, like, don't get wet, come inside. And I just remember walking in flooded streets. And it was kind of fun because you're like, whoa, puddles and stuff. Falling in isn't the best, but there's just a lot of rain. And so just expect to get wet while you're there. I think the most craziest was when I was in my first area in Ocoa. Since it was raining a lot, the streets were flooding. We had to climb up this thing and try not to fall into this like river. And not that it was like a crazy river, but like the river of the street. And that's how like the streets get clean. So you don't really like play in the water because all the trash and stuff gets washed with it. And there's a lot of stray dogs, so there's a lot of stray other things. So this was a lot of rain. And you just walk through these rivers. So I recommend like plastic shoes for those because they just get really wet. I love Dominicans. They are loud and there's not really personal space with them. Which is, I like some of the other culture that neighbors and stuff, like everyone, you're basically, if you're neighbors, your family, you go into each other's houses and just like, you're like, oh, okay. But they're very loud, they're very blunt, which takes, Americans were kind of more conserved, I feel like. But I just remember, because we just talked about food, I like the Dominican food. And I remember a few times the Dominicans, they'd just be like, oh, do you like the Dominican food? I'm like, yeah, I do. They're like, oh, it looks like it. And I'm like, oh, thanks. Like, or like, oh, you're getting a little fatter. And I'm like, dang it. Like, I'm glad you're telling me that so I, can fix it. But they're just no shame. Which sometimes I feel like I need to be careful because now I kind of picked up on it. And like, I don't know, more blunt, but I kind of like it because they're like, there's no holding back. Like I said, they're loud, so they always have loud music. It's not really quiet in a Dominican community unless you live out in like El Campo, which is like the countryside. So, I love that they love you, like very hospitable, and they just want to share everything with you, which was kind of hard as a missionary. That we kind of had a rule to not really eat with members because a lot of people were poor. I remember I was in training and there's a phrase there that they use there called, like, if you're eating and someone comes by, you say bien tiempo, which means like, do you want any? Which really literally translates to good time. And I was confused. I was like, I don't understand. Like, my trainer was like, he's asking if you want any. And I'm like, oh no. Like, he just had just a thing of rice. I was always eating because they didn't really have anything else. And so they're willing to share with anyone if they can, even if they don't have much, which I really love that. Because they don't really have much there, but they learn to live with a lot less, I feel like. And they're happy and loving, and I think that's great. So I love them. It's not particularly all Catholic. They're all very religious, or say that they are. Like, everyone, it is a believing country, which I think is really cool. Like, even in the flag itself, it has an open Bible on it, which I think is really neat. Almost everyone is a believer in God, at least in Christ. They all have kind of that background. It's kind of in their schooling, I feel like, too, that like they kind of openly talk about it more. It's not necessarily, closed, personal thing. Everyone kind of believes in God. For that reason, there are a lot of churches. It's not just Catholic. Like, I remember one of my areas, we lived in front of a Seventh-day Adventist church, and down the street was a Pentecostal church, and right next to that church was our church. So there's Catholic churches, there's a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses, there's a lot of Seventh-day Adventist church, Pentecostal churches, just a lot of Methodist. I think there's Methodist. There's Nazarene. There's so many beliefs there because they're just so believing, which I think is really awesome that they have that background and that they're openly talk about it, which I think is cool. In the beginning, I didn't necessarily like Dominican food. It's a lot of rice and beans, which I had heard that they ate rice and beans before, and I don't know, since American culture is so involved with, I feel like, Mexican culture, I was like, oh yeah, like Mexican food, like refried beans and rice, like that's fine. It's not like that at all. It's like just white rice and like, I don't know what kind of beans they are, but like kidney beans, but all kinds of beans really. They make something called moro, which either you can use beans or something called guandule, which is like peas. So they eat a lot of rice, which I wasn't used to. You get like a rice belly like the first couple months. And they eat something called Sancocho, which is like a soup, but like potatoes and yuca and plantains and meats and just this big mystery soup. But that's actually kind of good. And my favorite probably actually is the bandera, which means flag, which is just rice, beans, and meat, and they have a little salad, which, I don't know, they make all kinds of different food, but it's like cheap food there. Like you can buy anything in a colmado, which is like a little convenience store. They have them on every corner. And so all the food that they make you can get there, like spaghetti, rice, beans, and plátanos, which is plantains. So, but I liked it. There's something that they make every Easter and every Christmas, which is called habichuelas con dulce, which is this like sweet beans. I don't know how I really explain it. It's kind of like a sweet soup pudding thing. I don't know, it's good. And so it's kind of like a tradition that they have. And they have something else called chaca, which is like corn and lots of sugar and condensed milk. None of it's good for you, but so they have like some interesting things which I liked. So, and living with a Dominican companion, I got to try a lot of different things, and she loved to cook, so I was like, have at it. So they eat a lot of salami too, and fried eggs, and a lot of things fried actually, now that I think about it, like empanadas, and something called bollitos, which are like, I didn't know what yuca was before the mission. I don't know if that's a common thing, but it's kind of like similar to potato. They have to take out the hard shell, cook it, and for bollitos they like grind it up and put egg in it, put cheese in the middle, and then fry it. It looks kind of like a mini corn dog thing. So I don't know. Tried a lot of Dominican food, so it helped make bollitos and help grade cocoa for people to sell, like coconut candy. And so yeah, it was liver, but it wasn't necessarily clean, and liver is a little sketch. And so she like gave it to us, and I'm like, I don't want to eat this, and my companion's like, what is it? I'm like, don't eat it. And so like I ate some of it, but you just like pray that it doesn't get you sick. And so it wasn't necessarily like something like super crazy like tongue or intestines. I luckily didn't try intestines. They do have something like a soup that they eat intestines, but that was the most scary because I was afraid I was gonna get sick. It's funny because they speak really fast, and they cut off a lot of like all their S's. They don't like use S's, or sometimes they'll add S's in the middle of the word, and it's not supposed to be there. And they have, I kind of explain it like how we have English here. We have different kinds of accents, like here in the Midwest, but also we have the South, and they have like a Southern drawl and different lingo, different names for things. And so that's kind of like how it is, I feel like, the Dominican Spanish. They have a lot of different words for different things, and so if you didn't grow up there, you're like, what are they talking about? And they just speak really fast, and you're like, what? Like I remember I was with my Peruvian companion, and it was my last transfer, so I had been there for a while, and we were asking directions of where a guy lived. And he's like, oh yeah, I live over here, down this street, turn this, to this, and this. And it's in this orange house. But he didn't use like the normal Spanish word for orange. He used the word called mame, which is a Dominican word. And she's like, where does he live? I was like, the orange house. And she's like, I didn't hear that word. I'm like, yeah, he said mame, which means orange. So, and it was kind of funny that they have a lot of different lingo, and sometimes I have to be careful when I speak with people like Mexicans, because they use a word there called like chin, which means a little bit, but I guess it's close to a bad word in Mexican Spanish. So like they just have different terms for things, and it's fun. It's a fun experience. I spoke to a lot of Central Americans that came to my mission, and they said they didn't understand them when they first got there. And that's funny because they grew up speaking Spanish but didn't understand Dominicans. So it's harder, so it's okay if you don't understand it in the beginning. Yes, and I testify of gift of tongues. So yeah, it's really an important gift to pray for. They have basically almost everything that we have. But there are some things that are more expensive, and depending on where you are, like I mentioned the Campo before, which is a countryside, there's a lot less things available there. But when you're in the capital, basically everything you really need is there. So I guess as a mom, like stuff you could send, I don't know, it kind of just depending on what they would really need. Because really anything is good and welcome, like toothpaste and shampoo, because, I mean, that's money that we save as a missionary. But really you can get almost anything from the capital, at least. And then when you're in the campo, there's basically your necessities are there too. There's a cheaper brand per se, like they have shampoo, but it's not like Pantene or Suave or something like that. It's usually like a cheaper brand, and they have toothpaste, but like I said, cheaper. But as for like feminine products are harder to find, or if they are, like in the capital, they're a lot more expensive. So, but I feel like most of the missionaries know that, and they just pack a lot of things. But basically everything you could need. It's more like comfort things I feel would be a good thing to send. Like their favorite candy. Like they don't really have sour candy there, which I thought is kind of neat. They have a lot of like Snickers, they have Twix, like the normal chocolates, but they don't have like sour or interesting different kinds of candy like that. So just like comfort things from home. Not really baked goods because it takes a while to get there. But anything that's kind of reminds them of home or the favorite thing would be my advice to sending things to missionaries. It is different, I feel like, for sister missionaries. Like I was getting ready this morning, I was like, I actually wore this outfit on the mission, but I never wore my hair down. I didn't have this much makeup on. Like, I guess my advice is don't really bring that much makeup. You only really use it for conferences and stuff. As for hair, learn to find different ways of putting it up, like different styles, because it's never down, because it's always hot. As for clothes, I don't know, because I brought a lot of clothes, but they have a lot of places called pacas, which is like kind of like DI kind of thing, but it's really cheap. Everything there is pretty cheap. And I'm pretty sure I only brought like 3 items that I actually took to the DR and back. I just like would always circulate through clothes because you get tired of your clothes. That's inevitable. And so it is nice there, but I wouldn't recommend white shirts. I mean, it sounds like it'd be a good idea because it's hot, but you sweat so much they get yellow and gross and stained. That black shirts, like black t-shirts, I felt were nice because they went with everything and they didn't really get stained or look that gross. And not really big collared shirts, that too. The washer machines there just stretch everything out. So you could have a really cute shirt, but the collar just gets stretched and then you have to do some maneuvering with safety pins so it's not completely huge. So things that don't necessarily stretch too much. Cardigans, you don't really need those like at all. I mean, maybe at least bring one for when you go to conferences because we're in an air conditioning building and it gets cold. I didn't like air conditioning in the mission when you're so used to the heat. So that's be my advice with that. It's different for a sister missionary. You'll get catcalled a lot. So that's kind of is normal, especially when you're white. Because they're generally like, it's not like completely like a black, they're kind of like a mix. It can range from like really white, kind of like American white. I shouldn't say American because there's Americans that aren't white. I mean like Caucasian to really, really dark. So, but since we're Americans, you always get catcalled and in the street they call you rubia, which means blonde, even though I'm not blonde. But that one's just kind of used to, and my advice for that is don't necessarily look. And sometimes they hiss at you too. That's something they do. They go tss, tss, to get your attention, and I wouldn't get mad at that. That's how they get your attention. It's interesting because I caught myself doing it sometimes to get someone's attention because they respond to it. But that would be my advice for sister missionaries, is not be afraid, but it's fun. It's a fun experience. You're not super girly in the mission because you're sweaty and hot, but it's fun. I was training, we like to say daughter, like she's my daughter because I'm her mom. But I was training my trainee, And I don't know, we are fasting and praying a lot to find people that were ready to be taught. I remember walking one of our areas, and there was these two guys sitting in the corner, like out in the corner of the street. One was a big guy, shirtless, is sitting there, and the other guy's just sitting there, and they're like commenting on people walking by. Like, it wasn't really catcalling. What they were saying was like, that one's mine, that one's yours, like when they'd see girls. But they're like, I don't know, they're like in their 50s, like they're older men. And so we go up to them, and like we introduce who we are, and that, and like asking if they'd be interested, if they know anybody interested in the church. And the one guy's like, you know what? Yeah, there's a girl named Rosa who lives down the street. I think her and her daughter would go to the Mormon church. Like they would go, and we're like, okay, like where do they live? We're trying to like write it down, and then we leave, and I don't know if we had an appointment. I think we were just contacting, and then we didn't end up going to that house that next day. But we were in the same area, I think a couple days after, and we were actually teaching somebody. And a girl comes up to us, and she's like, "Are you guys missionaries?" We're like, "Yeah." She's like, "Oh, my name is Rosa. I live right over here." And we're like, "Oh, yeah, you're Rosa. Like we met someone who knows you, kind of thing." She's like, "Yeah, come after you're done teaching here. Come to my house." We're like, "Okay, cool." And so we're like, "All right." So we finished teaching, and we go over there. Turns out the guy who was telling us about Rosa was her husband, and we start talking to Rosa, and she ends up being a member, but baptized like in the 80s, which is cool because like the church has only been there since the 70s, and so she's like a pioneer. And she showed, we're like, "Really, you remember?" She shows us these pictures of the sister missionaries, and we're like, "Oh my gosh, like this is so cool." And so we just started teaching them, because I'd walked by that house several times before, and I had seen her, but I kind of always felt like I was like, maybe I should talk to her. But then my trainee was like, "We're gonna talk to her," and we ended up finding this wonderful family, and the husband actually did get baptized. It was just funny because he was like, "No, that's Rosa's thing." He got baptized, and his son got baptized, and it's just a great experience to like being in tune with the Spirit, and like the people that you meet, and just seeing how the Lord works in certain ways. That we had met the husband first, and then ran into her, and like it just really showed me that the Lord really is like preparing His people, and preparing a way for the missionaries, for those who are prepared to receive the gospel. So I thought that was really awesome. Overall, as a missionary, I feel like, generally speaking, I really gained a testimony of the restoration. I mean, that's why you teach a lot. And since the people there are so believing, they already have that foundation in God and Christ. At least believe in Him, and so the restoration is very new to them. And I taught a lot, and I just remember one time just teaching, and just literally feeling like I was like the sun, like this lit up, and just feeling the Spirit so strong that this is true. Like I can't deny it. I mean, I haven't seen God the Father, Son, Jesus Christ, but like I know that the church was restored, and I know that Joseph Smith was a prophet. And so I feel like that was my biggest testimony builder, is knowing for sure that this is the true restored church on the earth. That like all the churches have truth to them, but they lack some truth, and that the church was restored, and we're part of it. And so that was definitely my most spiritually building block, I guess I received. It happened when I was with my Dominican companion. So I remember one time my companion and I, because we had to cook for ourselves our lunch, and we were walking home, and I was asking my companion if we needed to stop and buy Vienna for lunch. And she just looked at me like, "What?" And I was like, "I mean berenjena," because I said Vienna. I meant to say eggplant. What I actually said was whale. And so berenjena is eggplant. And I was like, "Yeah, do you think we should buy some whale before?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh." And then another thing happened. They had to fumigate our house for mosquitoes and cockroaches and stuff. So it was during our weekly planning. So we went to the church to weekly plan because we couldn't be in there during that. And we were walking back after they had finished, and we ran into the bishop's son and another member. And they were asking us where we were and all this stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, we had to go to the church because they're smoking in our house. Because they asked about the other missionaries, and they're like, what? And I was like, oh, not no, like fumigando, I'm sorry. Like, I said fumando instead of fumigando, and I was like, dang it, they're not smoking, they're like fumigating in our house. And I just love these experiences. But I had another one. I was speaking Spanglish. I was trying to be cool and use a new Spanish word that I learned. And I was asking one of the sister missionaries if she had shaved her aguilas, which I meant to say armpits, but I said aguilas, which means eagles. And so she's like, oh, that makes bald eagle have a totally different meaning. So it's kind of funny. Like, they're so close. Ballena, berenjena, águila, axila, like, but little things totally have a different meaning. So like, instead of buying eggplant for lunch, we were going to buy whale. And so I did have some language things like that, and I definitely laughed about it and still do. So it's fun. It's a learning curve. I feel like the mission really helped me realize what's important in life. It kind of helped make me realize that God's most important than anything. I feel, because I was at school before going to college, and I feel like when you're a college student, you start not necessarily get more self-absorbed, but like you're getting a career, you're making your own choices on your own, and it helps you realize that it's not all about you. That God should be first in everything, and that's when things work out. I feel like this helped me realize that, like, God, my family, I mean, receiving education is important, but just following what God would have us do. And so that really helped me realize that, like, these little materialistic things don't really matter. I saw people live with a lot less and were a lot more happy than people I know that have more. And so as long as you have Heavenly Father first, then that's what's really important, because you can have so much less and be so happy as long as, like, Heavenly Father's there, because He's going to provide for your needs and many of your wants too if you put Him first. And so I saw that firsthand. I gained a testimony of that, and I know that that's true, that really if we put first the kingdom of God, all things will be added unto us. And so that was a big life lesson that I learned. I liked meeting and talking to people before, but now I feel like I totally talk to everyone. I mean, maybe it'll die down the more time I've been home, but I feel like as a missionary, you definitely have to learn communication skills, because you're talking to everybody, everyone, and it's scary in the beginning, especially if you're learning a new language, because you're like, I don't know what I'm going to say, and so you just go up to people. And so I feel like I've learned more communication, as in, like, asking good questions and being an active listener. Actually, that's probably my best thing, because I can talk forever. Especially before the mission, I feel like I was a good talker, but the mission helped me learn to listen, because I could understand more than I could speak in the beginning. And so I learned to listen to what their fears were and what they were saying. And so I feel like that helped me more to realize that, these are children of God and everyone needs to be heard. And so I could talk to anyone, but being able to listen to see what they had to say was probably the most important. Before the mission, everyone tells you that it's hard. And they're like, yeah, it's hard. Yeah, I know that. Or I'd be talking to some of my friends who, I can't believe that, I don't remember if they were on the mission or they had come back, but they were just telling me, like, oh, it was hard for me for this, for that. And I was like, that'd be easy for me. Like, I can do this. But the mission's hard for everyone, because it's a big stretching and growing experience, and that generally hurts when you have to stretch or grow. And because the Lord's shaping you to be His servant, and He needs you to be what He needs you to be. And so it's hard in that sense. For me, it was hard because, I don't know, I was away from home. I was pretty far away from home. I mean, you only talk to them on P days for an hour on internet, and then for like Christmas and Mother's Day. So that was hard. And then like if you have a companion that maybe you don't necessarily get along with, or you end up arguing over something, it's hard because you don't have someone to like vent to necessarily, but you do really. It's Heavenly Father, and so like you have to learn that. As I learned to really rely on Heavenly Father and reading my scriptures and stuff, because I didn't have my mom to like go vent to and just hug me while I just talked about my day. Like I did that with Heavenly Father, and I had companions that would help me with that too. Like I'm like a physical person, so I like miss my mom's hugs. Like I was like, I can't do this, and so it was harder. But you find different ways that help you. You have to find different coping methods, and because you won't have those things that you had before. Like me, I always listen to music too, which you can bring music, but it has to be like, spiritual and uplifting music. Can't be like screamo hard rock. Like maybe you listened to that before, but you have to find different ways, and really your biggest strength is Heavenly Father during those hard times. And so I definitely gained a strong relationship with Him as I went through those things. So I'm thankful for them, because you develop that stronger bond. So it's worth it, but it is hard. The theme with my second mission president was El Pulso, which is like the pulse. We had a fever too. Like it was a fever. Like you had the fever of sharing the gospel. It was fun. I liked it. Because as a missionary, you keep a lot of records, teaching records, and numbers that you had, like how many people you met that day, how many lessons you taught. And so we had like goals that we tried to meet with this pulse goal, so that we could have not necessarily just baptize tons of people, but be prepared to find those people who were prepared to teach. And I can't remember all of the things that we had, but it was, contact a lot of people, but like have effective contacting, and I don't know. It was a cool thing that we had, like to have the pulse, like, and the fever too. Like they had like a little handout, like symptoms, like your hands are sore from shaking so many hands, and your chest hurt, like chest pain from all the love that you had for them, and like all these like symptoms that you had because you just wanted to share it. And it was fun. I liked it because it put it in like perspective, like, this is like fun, but also like missionary work and helping other people. So that was our theme, was the pulse, which I think is still the theme right now. But yeah, a lot of things happen. I just remember a lot of things like, I can't believe this is happening right now. If my parents could see this, I don't think they would have ever allowed me to come out on a mission. Like just certain things that you're like, oh, we're going for it. I just remember like crossing through the river, going in my first area, like just to be flooded, and my mission president at the time said that we could hitchhike up the mountain. So we would like jump in the back of this truck, and people we didn't know, and so I'm just like, this is happening. And I don't know, there's certain things that you take for granted living here. Just little things like that. So nothing specifically comes to mind, but I just remember thinking that, like, I can't believe this is happening. Well, alright then. I don't know. I'm a recent RN. Been home 3 months. But I guess what I've noticed so far is to stay busy. Because, we've been go, 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 go for like either 18 months to 2 years. And so I think that's the hardest thing, is when you go, 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 and all of a sudden you're home, and it's like, what do I do? Like, I can sleep in, I can play video games all day long, I can eat junk food and do nothing. But I still need to work on using a planner still. I'm like hit and miss with it. I'm like, okay, I plan. But staying busy, and what helps me is I still pray for like opportunities to serve or to even share my testimony, because I may not be a full-time missionary, but I still have a testimony, and I can still make a difference. And so like I always try to find things to do to help other people, and it just helps me feel better because, like, I mean, yeah, it's hard being home because I miss the mission a lot. I don't miss like the hard things that I talked about, but I miss like the wonderful people that I met and the experiences that I had. And those are great memories. And sometimes I feel like it's, as a return missionary, time to dwell on that. And like, oh, it was so easy. Like now being home is hard, and I have school and pay bills and stuff. But just staying busy and focusing outward is my biggest thing. It's like reach outward and upward. So reach out to others, and if you're still struggling, reach out to Heavenly Father too. Because when we're serving others, we're serving God and relying on Heavenly Father. So that's my biggest advice, is outward and upward. First of all, congratulations to going to the best mission in the whole world. Everyone says that, but really it's the best mission because that's the mission you were called to, and that's the mission I was called to. And really, you'll find out why you were called to that mission. You're going to meet wonderful people that you wouldn't have otherwise met. I love my mission, and I know that I was meant to go there and meet those people. It's a wonderful place. It's hot and sweaty, and you might not look the best, but you're going to have wonderful experiences that are going to change your life, and you're going to change many others' lives. And enjoy it while you can, because it'll go by way fast. And during those hard times, just remember the good times that you've had, and to always think about serving your investigators and your companion, because it's going to be hard, but as long as you try to serve other people and always love God and His children, it's going to be a wonderful experience, and I'm really excited for you. I love my mission, and I'm really thankful that I was able to serve the Lord. I didn't realize I was preparing for my mission my whole life, and I feel like my mission has prepared me for the rest of my life, which is kind of scary in a sense, because you're like, oh, when you're out on your mission, you're like, this is preparing me for real life. Like, what's my life going to be like? But I'm really thankful that I was able to serve. I just love the gospel so much, and I know that it's true, and just the spirit that you feel when you serve and the testimony you receive is so awesome, and I know it's going to bless me from here on out, and bless my family and my future children and grandchildren, and I know it's blessed my family while I was gone. I just want to share that it was harder for me to see the blessings while I was out on my mission. Because everyone's like, oh yeah, you get blessings, they're going to take care of your family, like, don't worry about it. And it was harder because I felt like my family was the same. Like, I was like, nothing's happening. Like, I mean, I'm trying the best I can out here. Am I not doing good enough? Like, nothing like bad happened really to my family, but I just was expecting a lot more, and I felt like, I don't know, I was being withheld from all these blessings, but really I came back and I realized that the impact that my mission had was way greater than I imagined. Like, it impacted my immediate family, but then like my parents would share those messages like that I had with people that they worked with people that they met, and I just thought it was really cool that really you change your own life, but many others through the testifying of Christ. And the mission is so worth it, and I'm so thankful I was able to serve.